right, how are you today? Nice to meet you. Mucho gusto. So, I'm Austin Davis, founder of Blockchain Beach, as Otto just said. Launched a bunch of other crypto projects and applications, also working with Sebastian here in my chair fell, and Jonathan White of Fusion Group here in Costa Rica. And also just got back from Japan, was there yesterday, so I've been only sleeping on planes lately. It's fun, but we're working on some pretty ambitious projects over there. I don't know if you've heard of Mt. Gox, one of the biggest hacks in this industry, so we are working on getting as much money back to the creditors as possible, working with the trustee in Japan and the regulators, so that's why we're over there. I am going to let everybody introduce themselves. So we have Karla, Sebastian, Joshua, and Chen, and they all have some amazing projects. We're going to be talking about communities and the importance in the industry and a lot of other fun topics. So I'm going to pass it off to Karla here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Karla Córdoba. I'm from Costa Rica, pura vida. And I'm the co-founder of BeSpiral. BeSpiral is an open platform that allows any community to create their own complementary currency for social impact. So that's me.
Hello, my name is Sebastian from Canada, Vancouver, British Columbia, West Coast of Canada. Co-founder and CEO of a company called InterMesh, which predominantly started with cryptocurrency mining, expanded into investing in other companies with the profits from a cryptocurrency mining operation, and are now in Costa Rica working on setting up some new ambitious projects, as Austin has mentioned.
Hello, buenos dias. So Joshua Hughes. I've been in Costa Rica for 13 plus years. A group of my friends moved down here from Oregon, the United States, and California, and a couple other states originally. Now we have a much bigger co-op, but in 2006, we started a farm called Verde Energia Pacifica in Puriscal. And it was originally just supposed to be a project for my friends and my family to kind of have an oasis in the mountains of Costa Rica, but quickly it developed into more. And over the last 13 years, we've had thousands and thousands, maybe close to 5,000 students, teachers, leaders come through and learn with us. We have a permaculture school at our farm. And we've recently, over the last few years, had to develop a much bigger co-op, not just to protect our own little piece of land, but to incorporate more of our neighbors and get more people engaged with us. So we have another project now called BlackSheep, Regenerative Resource Management, which is a bigger collective where we're sharing the processing of goods and services and finding investment and helping joint ventures and wholly owned projects that we have around the region to reforest, to protect watersheds, to bring this idea to the bigger world. So I'm grateful to be here with you guys, and we're trying to integrate in good blockchain technologies into what we've been doing. We've been developing the real world assets and biological assets and tracking all these things for years, and we're really excited to get into the research and development and how to connect this and tether this to the crypto world so we can do things at a much bigger scale. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, completely fascinating. Hi everybody. So whoever was here in the morning already knows me. My name is Chen. I am the EY America's blockchain leader. Maybe a bit different from the rest of the panel here. I mainly represent the B2B side of blockchain, and our communities is more large corporates that build blockchain technology.
Great, thank you. So the topic is communities, and that's obviously very important to everything we're all doing here. If you're not engaged with the community, you're going to miss a lot, and you're going to have a lot of problems. So communicating with everyone from developers to end users to enthusiasts to funding partners, and legal is very important, obviously. I'm in the United States, and if you make one misstep, you're in jail pretty much. Doing a fundraise over there. Securities laws are pretty tight, but I think that's the importance of connecting with the community on the full spectrum. And I know Joshua was doing some great things on that, it sounds like. And so I guess I'm gonna pass it off to Karla here, because it sounds like you've got a really interesting community project, and let us know how how you're working with the community and kind of highlight the importance and how you're engaging.
Perfect. Yeah. So yeah, community is all for us. The idea of BeSpiral is actually connecting people. Most of the time what happens is you have a goal that you want to achieve, let's say a social and environmental objective. You want to, have an impact, you want to create a beautiful community in the middle of Costa Rica, or you want to protect a river, or you want to maybe transform how your community works and motivate people to do things. Usually the barrier is we don't have money, right? So we don't have money to pay people, we don't have money to buy the things we need. So we are trying to break that barrier, right? And giving people the access to create their own complementary currencies or new types of money that they can design by themselves. And with that money, motivate people to do things, positive things towards achieving this social things, right? So we have many communities involved in this. First, we started creating what we call the Testing Heroes group, which is a group of people that is, they are change makers, people that is actually trying to do a difference with their projects or their initiatives. And they have this problem of, I don't have any money, I don't have enough money, I need to do more fundraising to do my project. So this is a group of people from around the world, our friends, people that are working in sustainability things, improving local communities and economics, for example. So we test with them every step. So since the beginning of BeSpiral, we've been showing them what they're doing and having all the feedback from this testing group, in which has been invaluable, right? So it's not our tool, it's their tool at the end, it's their customers. And also we decided to create BeSpiral using EOS.io. So the EOS community has been really helpful for us. And I'm from Costa Rica, but I live now in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. And I'm here with Rodolfo and Luca from my team. We're based there. So we've been really connected with the EOS Bio blog producer there, which is a strong community of people that is developing EOS, creating community around different projects being developed with EOS.io, and also here in Costa Rica with EOS Costa Rica. Right? So we've been super impressed about the quality of the relationships and the support of this community, and how the interactions and the flow of information and tips and help. We don't know how to do like this, or we can all the time go to the community and ask for help, and also help others. So, like a couple of examples of how we are building community around the project. Yes. Like any other?
Just touch on community.
Related to project.
You're involved in, yeah. So, I mean, what I would say to people, I'm not sure who exactly is in the room and where you're at in your journey. I started as an entrepreneur with a health company, and of course, when you're in a traditional entrepreneurial world, you've got competitors, people that you work against. I have to sell my product, and if somebody else buys the other product that's on the shelf, I'm losing money, basically, right? And I always reflect on the beginning of coming into cryptocurrency. I had a mentor who explained to me in 2010 what Bitcoin was, how it worked, how to buy it. I couldn't have done any of those things on my own at the time. It's very difficult for people to understand. We now have a community around the world of millions of people that talk about blockchain, and very, very few people that actually understand it technically. And so the importance of community becomes very, very big within that context. But further than that, what I've seen for myself is that there's a very unusual business model that arises out of that. Decentralization is a very disruptive thing, not just in terms of economics, but in terms of human psychology. I found that my partners that I work with in blockchain, for example in cryptocurrency, will support me and will be able to co-pollinate and create new outcomes. So a specific example I would give about that is that we started with cryptocurrency mining. We bought a whole bunch of mine GPUs at the time and started tuning them on and mining Ethereum, basically. And it seemed like a pretty straightforward thing. You buy some computers and turn them on and make some money, right? So it's obviously not that simple. And we needed, yeah, who would have thought? So we needed support technically, people that would help us improve the efficiency of our operation. And we found that other people from other mining operations would come in and actually support us in doing that, which is kind of a bizarre thing. You think about, like I said, a traditional business, it's like, who's going to come and tell me all the trade secrets to help me get my operation running? It's kind of bizarre. More recently, we've ran into a lot of challenges with mining, and so the reason for that is because the price decrease that's happened in the value of cryptocurrencies, and it's mostly cost prohibitive now to be mining cryptocurrency, and the reason is there's an evaluation of the cost of energy versus the cost of the coins themselves, the value of the coins, I should say. So as it turns out, the solution to this problem is the improvement in technology, which is a very sensitive area. If you think about IP, patented technology is not something that's very commonly shared. I mean, we have a few examples of this, like maybe an Elon Musk, for example, who open sources patents to other places so that they can help expedite the process of being able to execute, deploy those technologies. So that's an unusual example in a traditional field. But for ourselves, we've been interested in setting up a mining operation in Costa Rica. So how do we do that? It's a really complex thing. The reason it's so complex is because in Costa Rica it's hot, right? And it's humid. Yeah, that's right. And so in Canada, and power costs a lot here. So, those are some variables that make it extremely challenging. I mean, we don't see a lot of large-scale mining operations in India or Africa or Central and South America. It's a very uncommon thing. So as it turns out, there's solutions to these things. There's something called submersive dielectric cooling, which basically is a cooling that's done with liquid. We'll just make it simple, so we'll go down that road. But we've been essentially given the ability to deploy cryptocurrency mining operations in Costa Rica as a result of partnerships with other people that it will affect their bottom line to be able to allow us to do this. But they want to because they want to propagate the technology. And this is an underpinning philosophy that I think is fundamentally changing the way that people look at technology, look at community. If we work together, we can actually go further. There's a great quote that I heard recently. You want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with others. So, what I would say in closing on my opinion on community and cryptocurrency is that it's everything. And that's why, my number one sort of disposition has been inclusivity and trying to build bridges, right, rather than the islands. So that's what I would say about community in my experience.
Yeah, and that leads to education, because education leads to understanding and adoption. I think, Josh, that ties in a lot with what you're doing here. So why Costa Rica, and what are you doing to educate people in the industry related with your community?
Why Costa Rica? Well, I didn't want to be cold anymore. One thing, I lived in a cold place growing up in winters and a very hot place. So I really did choose this country for, I wanted eternal spring, and where I bought in Babaluanes, in the Tulane River out Putiscal, pretty much always feels like spring. But mostly I bought in this country, and I did this project here because I wanted to be in a place that wasn't so engaged in the wars the world is having. And I was a strong activist when I lived in Oregon. Spent my last few years there trying to, put George Bush in jail. So, yeah, and I brought that energy with me to the mountains of Costa Rica and decided I need to start more from the bottom, because pepper spray was no fun. And a little bit was fine, but every day and not getting anywhere with it. So I had a revolution in myself, and I knew I needed to get engaged in the bottom-up approach. And my activism was starting to come into bigger and bigger areas like water, protecting water. And that may sound like, a worldwide thing, and it does go there, but it was local for me. I had a lake behind my house that was dirty, making people sick. Working on that, working on the next step of that, getting into politics a little more. I see blockchain technology eventually working in governance, like I'm sure a lot of you do, but to where we can take more actions on the political realm too of this, and organize around that and have some transparency. But I chose Costa Rica, and I brought my community here with me, and the initial community I brought was only like 15 or 20 people. But this place is sort of a magnet for people that want to do things, especially with the environment. There's a couple different types of people that come to Costa Rica, and one of them is people that are in their mid-20s to mid-40s that really want to do something with regenerating this planet, and want to be engaged in that. So the lessons I learned in the first few years here was it was really hard work. There's a ton of real work to do in the Congo here. Where we bought was what I consider to be sort of a sacrifice zone. Putiscal was totally cut down for tobacco, rice, and beans. Land was given to people to move out there if they cut it all down. And Putiscal is, other than Haiti, about 15 years ago, National Geographic called TicoBlockchain the worst example of forestry in the world. And that's because we had a functioning government here and we still did that. So I moved out there I didn't want to just move to Oslo and have a place where it was already forested and call it good. I had to be engaged in the doing and the learning. So my community got involved in the Soil Up project, and after a few years, there were tons of really great byproducts around that. People wanted to come be a part of it. Volunteers coming from all over the world, coming from San Jose. We have a lot of young Costa Ricans now living with us, participating, people that want to be engaged in regenerative agriculture. This country, while being beautiful and one of the most protected places in the world, 27% of Costa Rica is protected, uses the most chemicals per meter of any country in the world. We have agrochemicals. We use 18.2 kilograms per hectare of farmland here. It's more than China, way more than the US. So this country is beautiful, but it's being extracted from. And I wanted to be on the front lines against that extractive idea. And TicoBlockchain offered me a chance to get out there with my kind of anarchist self and not be bothered for a while. As long as I'm doing good out there, nobody seems to really mess with us. We're having fun learning, educating ourselves and others. And in the first few years, it was just my family. But what I learned quickly when I got here with a bunch of people I thought would be kind of my tribe, my core, I learned that I had nowhere near the amount of expertise I needed in my life. I had nowhere near the amount of teachers I needed and experts of every sort. And I needed young energy, people that wanted to get out and do this stuff. So we really opened ourselves up, and BeSpiral has about 80 owners, socios. And that's a very vulnerable feeling, taking your baby, your company, and like letting it be owned by more than just you and your family. So my experience early was let people have a piece of this stuff with me. Let's do something together. Invest your friends and family in your project. And from year one, through my activism, I always wanted to get control into our communities back and wrestle away from the banks. And the big banks are, in the United States, your average household spends $130,000 in their life on bank fees for touching your money, not interest, that's just the fees. So that really bothers me, and I'm a big fan of credit unions, and I love local state banks and stuff, and that's really not happening in the US. We're losing ground there, or we were for years. And there was progressive movements throughout history that really got close to grappling back some power from the real centralizers. The progressive movements have been there, but they missed the banking part, and they never had the money they needed when it came time. And there's not that there's not money. I've learned there's more than enough money to do this stuff. You said something else, the securities things. We have to learn how to make ourselves available for capital. We have to learn how to organize ourselves so that we don't break the law. And a lot of those laws aren't bad. The SEC's not your enemy. A lot of people in the crypto space think that it is, but I see it as like helping us get regulations so we don't end up with a bunch more corruption and collapses.
Yeah,
so I see
they have come out and said that there are utilities, and they recognize them. It's just you have to play by the rules.
Yeah, and we're okay with that. We spent the last year and probably $250,000 getting in legal and accounting and getting in line with all those things so that we can bring our company to the bigger world and scale up what we've done. And we're doing that now through big community, through trusting experts, through trusting friends, letting people be a part of it, having people be owners with you. This is how I believe small businesses and our ideas can actually affect the world, but we have to tie them to reality. And I think where a lot of the speculative nature of any disconnected currency can be remedied through things like equity tokens, which I hope that we can do one day and we're developing, so we can represent our shares of our company through digitized diluted ownership, so people all over the world can participate. And and more for us in the community part of this is getting not just the regulatory community, but like the transparency to your own investors by having and using blockchain technology for inventory and for tracking things like we're doing, which are massive amounts of biological assets, from trees to turmeric to whatever we're growing. We're now we're developing systems so that we can track that. Our investors world round can see that it's real, that it's tangible, and that we have real things to back our trades and our digital tokens that hope to exist.
Beautiful. Thank you. So I want to bring up a new topic before we run out of time here. Something very central to all communities in this industry is how we acquire and transfer all these assets, right? Which are exchanges mostly, and that's kind of how the prices are set or manipulated, or the market value is established. So we've seen a lot of problems, obviously, lately. If you look over the past decade, there's been hacks almost every year of major exchanges. A few weeks ago, Cryptopia, I believe, was taken out. I'm not sure what's even happening with that right now, but I had some money locked up in there. Which, by the way, just goes back to the point where don't leave your money on exchanges. Take it out, put it on your private wallets, which I usually do, but that one, I didn't. So that is the problem. These exchanges are all very centralized, just like Amazon is very centralized and Google is very centralized and Facebook is very centralized. Obviously, Facebook's had a lot of trouble with that lately. So I think we're shifting towards a model of decentralized exchanges. At least the custodianship, I believe, should be decentralized, because that way you hold your money in your own wallets and you move it over to the exchange and you can move it around and move it right back to your own wallet. And you're safer. So if the exchange gets hacked, it's not your money that's being taken. It's maybe money that's in transit, but it's not the entire amount. Like back to Mt. Gox, that was 800,000, more than 800,000 Bitcoins were stolen in one fell swoop. So that's a big problem. So that's why I think decentralized custodianship is a very important thing, and that's what we're doing at Gox Rising. And that leads me back to you, Chen, because I know you're a numbers guy over at EY. So tell us a little bit about that and how you think the industry could benefit from that.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to quickly answer the first question as well. Why communities?
Yes.
Because blockchain is a team sport. It is not something you play alone. It's not solo sport. And also the business world sees that. So even, I will take it to the extreme, even the banks we're working with, the large centralized banks that are the face of evil, even they understand that not, at least the people we are encountering in the banks. And they understand that their old business model is changing and that they need to adapt. And they're taking little baby steps toward it. So you've got that, and we see this all over the business community. As for custodianship, what we see is a little different than what you're describing. We just see that the big players like banks, one very famous example would be Fidelity, as an example, that are not necessarily going towards decentralization, but are going towards regulated and much more sophisticated custodianship. So there are those organizations that have been investing for a couple of years already in developing much stronger ways to keep the digital tokens safe. And for example, the technologies like easy swap between cold and hot storage. So even if you're a centralized exchange, most of the value is held in cold storage, inaccessible, and only the amounts you need to survive the day are available from hacking. And so we see much higher level of sophistication, and tying it back to, it's not about crypto. If we understand that the world is going into tokenizing real-world assets, it's not the billions that are in the crypto industry, it's the trillions of regular assets that need to be protected. And to see this protected in a decentralized way, it's going to take a long time. I think in the midterm, we will see the big banks and the big organizations become dramatically more sophisticated in the way they protect tokens.
Sure, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So anybody else want to talk about exchanges, issues with that related to community decentralization? Because if not, we can jump on to the next thing, which is more simple. So what are some of your biggest challenges in the industry, in your companies that you've built currently here in Costa Rica or abroad?
So one of the things that you mentioned before is the part about education and how we understand these ideas. What ideas? It's ideas about money, what it is, who creates the money we use every day, and what are the rules behind that money, right? And how the banks create it, and why we feel we don't have enough, if there's enough for everyone. And so for us, the journey started actually on that path. We created, with my husband, Rodolfo, who's also my co-founder, we created a sustainability task school which was an initiative to actually share these ideas about what is money, how you can create money, and how we can have different types of money. Cryptocurrency is a different type of money from the banks, right? The money that we use every day technically is called fiat money, which is created based on debt. It has a really big connection with the biggest social and environmental problem we have today. And it has also, it embeds this mentality of scarcity, that we don't have enough. So we created a couple of books and resources to actually try to advance those ideas and try to break those old concepts in people's mind. And that's part of what we are doing. But it's a big challenge because we use money every day, right? We are used to it, we work for it. We cry when we don't have enough. And learning about what it is and the reality behind it is kind of shocking sometimes, right? And also the idea of giving people the ability, the power to create new systems, it's kind of difficult to grasp at the beginning. So that's has been our biggest challenge, and we are actually now designing new tools, including a simulator, a currency simulator, so people can play with the rules, can change the rules of money. Money doesn't need to have the same rules everywhere, and not all cryptocurrency needs to be speculative, or not all cryptocurrency needs to be on an exchange, right? Actually, BeSpiral, the currencies that our communities are going to create, those are not going to be exchangeable for dollars, or they only have one function, which is freedom of exchange between people. So we are developing tools to actually change those ideas and trying to give people new tools to actually create new systems. And that's a big challenge, of course, and a big part of our work right now. And in the community part at the beginning, I forgot to also mention that we are also part of another of different communities of people around the world. One of these is the open source community. We have been funded by Schulenburg Foundation, which is a foundation created by Mark Schulenburg, the guy that created Ubuntu. So the idea is to promote projects that are open source, open to communities that people can collaborate in. And this has given us the opportunity to collaborate with people around the world that is working in different types of projects, not blockchain based, but that are being built with an open mentality, right? Which includes how you create communities, how you share what you're doing, how you can be more transparent, how you can co-create with people. So embedding those principles in our project is also another challenge, right? To do better and do it in a more fair way.
Cool, I like that idea, being able to play with the currency. I play with some currencies all day, it's my job. Challenges, I mean, you brought up legal. I'd be embarrassed probably to say how much money we've all spent on legal. It's really difficult when there's different countries with different regulatory frameworks. You're operating in Canada, US, now I'm in Costa Rica, we do stuff in Europe. It's difficult. It's difficult to find ways to create interoperability between these different countries. I think that's been a major challenge of ours. Right now I mentioned already that the cost of the value of cryptocurrency has gone down dramatically. So I think a lot of the times, one of my biggest challenges is dealing with cycles that people go through. And some of us have been through them a lot, right? So we know how to make money on cycles. And mostly the general public and traditional investors are losing money right now in cryptocurrency, and there's some metrics out about how much money was lost last year. And it's in the hundreds of millions for major funds. And so the market psychology becomes, okay, this thing is gone. And I'm usually working to educate people on the naivety of that. Because, back in 2010 when it was 7 cents, I remember reading an article that said, Bitcoin will never possibly be worth 10 cents. It's impossible. New York Times article, I think. And I often reflect on that, because then at 50 cents it could never be $1, and when it was $1 it could never be $10, and so on and so forth. And then for coffee, yeah. And now people are saying it's going to be $100,000 or $1 million. And so it's difficult to plan for market sentiment. In traditional VC and angel sort of networks, you've got cycles. And sometimes the market's hot, sometimes it's not, but it's somewhat predictable. The toughest thing in cryptocurrency, I think, has to be volatility. one day you wake up and it's a whole new world, right? In December, you probably could have just made up an idea. I mean, lots of people did. I think there's useless Ethereum token, I remember, raised $12 million in ICO. And they said, don't buy this, was one of the taglines. This is a bad idea. And so, the market was hot. You can raise $12 million telling people not to buy something. And now people that have exceptional ideas, that have spent years working on them, who really could use some small seed capital, are having a difficult time getting money in the door. We deal with a lot of people who are fundraising, doing things in that category. So I would say the volatility and market psychology is a difficult thing to manage, mitigate people's expectations, and also mitigate their concerns.
For me, it wasn't really about the technology so much. I'm deploying blockchain as a tool. It wasn't the core of our business. So for me, it's really been the biggest challenge, probably getting people and myself to figure out the best lever in the physical world to use. So I was all over the place looking at ways to help fix things, help identify value. And it took me a couple years of research with a lot of smart people around me to figure out where we should put our energy. And then getting people to understand that some of those things are most of these things that really matter in my world aren't quarter by quarter, aren't day by day at all. It's the slow growth of trees, it's the preservation of water and air, things that we all need, and things that are starting to be valued, things that we're starting to quantify in the world. So my biggest challenge is probably getting people to think about the externalities of all business, and then to try and look at their own business or at what we're doing, and take the smartest steps forward. So it took years to figure out that trees were this amazing machine that did all these different things. They held water, they held the hills together, they fixed the air. So getting people to see these and then use these levers together. And finding financing has been pretty simple so far for us because it's been small. We've been doing, what I've been doing in the jungle has been about $5,000 at a time. Every couple months we get a new shareholder, give us $5,000 and then we go and build some more. But scaling up is requiring that leap of faith, and where a couple years ago ICOs were selling like that, and I actually see most of that as really probably a ton of corruption was happening, and a lot of people are going to be in trouble or should be. They did the securities things. And so being a real business and then having to follow a bunch of that sucks. But I like that though, because we're doing it right. We're going through the slow steps of building a proper business that is in regulation or even pro-regulating, like getting ahead of it, and being very, very vulnerable and transparent to others and to lawyers and to governments. But getting people to have faith in that, and the real business that can be done with this. That's been a challenge, but not much, because most of the people who have been involved with us have come through, seen and touched the real thing we do, and then seeing how it can jump over to this digital world is kind of simple, and they already have trust. So the next step of dealing with investors all over the world and having trust from a distance, I can see that as a new challenge. People who haven't come and swam in my river, haven't tasted the water. So this, I love the idea of blockchains as the trustless systems. We can do this through transparency and create trust. So I think that's going to be a new challenge. So for the small business person, taking in partners, also taking in partners, taking in a wealthy person, making yourself vulnerable. Venture capitalists can swoop you up.
It's all about the right partners.
Yeah, and you don't know because you're coming from the bottom.
Easy money.
You're coming from the bottom up. You don't know about valuations and what happens if you don't reach a target and somebody gets 100% of your company. So those things have been scary for us to let people in to our beautiful projects that really work. That could work without this space, but then it'll make it so much better. And if we could prove how this works and how to tell these things, I see what we're doing is duplicatable, and we're going to share it with every other business that wants to do what we do, so nobody else has to spend $1 million on lawyers. Yeah. Sorry, lawyers.
So short answer about the challenges. I'll tell you where I don't see the challenges, or it's not that they're not there. The technical part, there's all these great developers here that work with us, and they solve the technical issues. The two challenges are, one, adoption, the number one challenge, convincing organizations to join an ecosystem, and the second is regulation. That takes a lot of time, and we're investing a lot of effort in getting regulation on board, especially in places like the US, which is highly regulated, and I really like the comment here. the SEC is your friend. It's not a bad thing. They just need to adapt.
That's right. And the more we take that sentiment, the easier it's going to be for companies to operate this industry. I think, you know, it's a beautiful market we're in, this crypto winter. I'm not sure if that's what it's called down here where it's not so cold, but that's what we call it up north. You know, it's a bear market. And it is a beautiful thing because that's when the developers shine and the real projects drive revenue and get on, you know, clients instead of just raising money and doing fundraising. They focus on driving revenue and then proving that they're worth funding later on. So I think it's a great thing, and the challenges, I agree with the sentiments everyone shared here about mass adoption and education, because when we are in that downturn, it's great for companies and building, but it's bad for adoption. Like, that's why the markets are just constantly kind of just you know, flatlining right now for the most part. And I do believe there's going to be probably another dip before there's you know, we see a bull market again, hopefully later this year. But it's not all about the price. I mean, that's not really what we're here for. Yeah, go ahead.
Does anybody recall what colones were worth 30 years ago to the dollar? 8.5? Yeah. 8.5 colones to the dollar 30, 35 years ago. Other currencies are like right here, and people are wondering when they're going to collapse. It's funny to me. All the time I hear like, oh my God, it's up, it's down. Dollars are down against real stuff. Colones are way down against real stuff. You couldn't save colones in 1980 and be okay now. You couldn't save. So like all the currencies are in collapse because real world stuff is becoming more scarce, and we don't know how to relate this anymore. We're going to have to totally reset it. So I'm not scared at all about the ups and downs. That means nothing. If you're using this stuff as currency, I think you probably wasted a lot of money and time. Like, and mining, a lot of my friends were in mining. They should have just been buying, right? They were mining when it was 50 cents a piece. So I think we should all just take a deep breath and see that the technology is being adopted and the world needs it. It's not about speculation, and there will be speculation, but the colon is almost dead compared to 30 years ago. And if you save now, it's going to be 2,000 colones to a dollar eventually. So what are we comparing it to, right? I hear a lot too, people complaining about the energy it takes to get crypto mined. How much energy did it take to have US bank towers in every city, in every world, every major city, and have people commuting to work in their cars and buying extra clothes and extra lunches? There's a ton of energy going into capital that's not being talked about, and there's a ton of stored, not evil, I don't like that word, but just bad ideas and bad contracts. So they're going to be resetting a ton of really bad ideas. So that's a very uncomfortable moment, and as we become and adopt these things, it's not just all fluff and great, it's bad for the corrupt. So we're not just doing good things, we're shining light on bad ideas.
And we are advancing those for real people, which was also my other additional comment. And one of the challenges is that most of the applications and the wallets and everything has been built for us, for the geeks, right, for the blockchain lovers. And we need to start developing more for the real people out there. And using cryptocurrency for the real world, for real. You cannot go to the supermarket and pay something. Yeah, and wait there for 2 hours, 2 days, depending on the network, right? So that's a big challenge, how to create things that are actually usable on the day-to-day life. And that's a challenge that we took at the beginning of BeSpiral. So we are designing it in a way that is usable for people on the day-to-day life. Actually, the first pilot we are starting to design and working here is in Costa Rica, is with pulperos. Pulperías are the little mom and pop shops in the neighborhood. So at that level, how do you have a pulpero using crypto on the day-to-day, right? So those are the type of challenges we need to start thinking of and start designing for that people. So actually all these things that we are working on actually translate to real benefits for people on the streets, right? That's another big challenge that we have.
This is a really unpopular belief, so I'm always apprehensive about saying it at blockchain conferences, but I might as well. So recently I had a bit of a reality check where I started to see some of the drawbacks potentially of blockchain, like we're all evangelizers, myself included, and I've been doing it for a long time. A lot of people have followed my advice over the years, and sometimes now I wonder, like if we've opened Pandora's box. So we all know about the positive parts of blockchain, and I think one of the challenges that I've been having recently is my own internal philosophical challenges with blockchain. And that includes the fact that some of these projects, when you launch a blockchain, it's designed in such a way that it can be turned off. When Ethereum first came out, I don't know how many people in the room were around in those days. One of our co-founders, a few of the co-founders were in the ICO, so we were like really all around Ethereum at that time. It had a really cool website. It was like the way the web is supposed to be or something, and it had like this tumbleweed, and it was like really cool actually. And they said, build unstoppable apps. I remember that. And so that sounds really good in theory, right? And a lot of times things sound good in theory. And there's a quote that says, the road to hell is paved in good intentions. So one of the things that I would say is my discovery has led me to the fact that there's some blockchains currently in operation that will never be turned off, that could very much damage the world. And so I would offer to the developers here to think, when you're developing these things, about the potential detrimental effects. Recently I saw a project that was AI on the blockchain. And so for those of us who know what AI is, there's potentially really scary things that AI can do. So AI on the blockchain maybe can't be turned off, for example. Or when we can do gambling, decentralized gambling, and we can take a bet out on anything, including maybe somebody's life, for example, and incentivize murder, as an example. And there's numerous other examples. And so I would just offer to the blockchain community here that centralization is not always bad. I think that we ended up with the system that we have for a reason. And this kind of speaks a little bit to the SEC point. It's like we have regulations to protect people. We have structures to protect people. Can they be improved upon? Absolutely, and that's what we want to do. But decentralization for the sake of decentralization, I think, is unwise. So I just wanted to offer that as well as a challenge.
Something quick. Totally agree on that, and that leads us to governance. So we need better governance for the blockchain that we're using, so people can actually take those decisions. Do we need to take it up? Yes. Do we need to change the rules? Yes. How can we do that? With better governance. Another challenge for developers. We don't need to think only on the code, we need to think of how people are going to use this, and how they are going to make decisions, and how are they going to change this, because we will need changes in the meantime.
Well, thank you so much. I believe we are about out of time. If anyone has any last comments here, I'm happy to vet that. But otherwise, thank you so much, everybody here on the panel, and thank you, everybody out here in the community. And we appreciate you, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.